Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Tom Gretsch, the President and CEO of the Queens Chamber of Commerce. It gives me great pleasure to announce our guest today. It's great having a son of Brooklyn join us here in Queens. You have juniors in the Dodgers, or had the Dodgers, and we have the Mets and Mamas Empanadas. So Senator Chuck Schumer needs no introduction, but I will say it's truly a pleasure to have you. In my time at the Chamber, I believe this is the first time we've had a chance to have you on a program. We've met a number of times. And before we get started, I want to thank you and your colleagues from New York for helping us, whether it was funding the Triple P or helping us with the third tranche of aid. Heaven knows we need more. And it's great to have you in our corner, sir. So the floor is yours until we have some Q&A.
Well, thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for getting on. I'm sorry I'm going to be a little briefer than I usually am in these meetings because, as you know, we're trying to put together the American Rescue Plan with so much for Queens and for New York. And I'm in the middle of that, but we had scheduled this, so I didn't want to cancel because I knew more people would be coming on. So first, let me thank Tom Gretsch, your great president. He's done a great job over this last year as the Queens business community has had one of the worst economic crises that we have had in memory. And I thank everybody else, all of you on the, I guess everyone's on the phone. Is that right, Tom? This isn't a Zoom.
Yeah, they're dialed in. They can hear what we're saying completely.
And are we filming this and sending it out to all your members as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so for everyone who's on the phone and everyone who will see this as online, thank you for all you do. I very much care about small business people who you are composed of by and large. My dad was a small businessman. He had a little exterminating business. It was not very successful, but I know how he struggled. He would pace the floor Sunday nights at 2 a.m. because he hated going to work. And I used to work at his little business weekends and summers. I'll never forget a moment, and I'm sorry, I am going to have to interrupt if I get calls because we're doing this bill right now. Hold on. Yes,
Understood.
Emily. No, see if it can wait, okay? So I remember he sent, this is one thing that sticks in my memory forever. He sent me out to collect some bills. There was a landlord, small landlord, who had 4 apartment buildings, and our little business did the exterminating for them. And the guy hadn't paid up for 8 months, and my dad sent me out to talk to him. And I went to talk to him, and you know what he said? Your dad's a small little businessman. He can't afford a lawyer to go to court. He doesn't have time to spend time in small claims court where I'll hold him up. I'm not paying. And my father had sweated so hard and done a good job in his business. In the external, it stuck with me. It stuck with me. So I care a lot. I just have an instinctive feeling for small businesses of all types. And I've always gone to bat for them, especially now. So first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my January 6th, and then I'll get into the substance of what we are, where we are. January 6th, I described for me as the best of times and the worst of times. Why? Well, January 5th was election day in Georgia, you may remember, and the 2 Georgia Senator Democratic nominees for Senate, had they won, I'd become majority leader. And I stayed up all Tuesday night. It bled into Wednesday morning, going on the computer, punching in, seeing what's the vote count this minute and that minute. Finally, at 4 a.m., they declared them the winner. And of course, my first emotion and reaction was joy. Every one of us has pursued goals, serious goals, and we've pursued them, you know, if they're a big goal for a while. And you know, whether it's in business or personal goal or a family goal. And if you've worked hard and pursued the path, there've been logs in the road, detours, and then you make it, your first reaction is overwhelming joy, and I had it. But within a few minutes, I had a second reaction. And I described that. It was a little different. It was what I'd call awe. Not awe in the sense that my daughters would use the word awesome. You know, gee, Dad, that jacket's awesome. But awe in the biblical sense. When the angels saw the face of God, they trembled in awe. And I realized the tremendous responsibility placed on my shoulders. With so much, with the COVID crisis and so much else, so many Americans worried about their futures. It was a huge, huge responsibility. And I a bit trembled at that responsibility because we have no choice. We must present a forward path to all America. So those were my two reactions. They commingled in my bloodstream. Went to bed, hardly slept. I was so excited. Got in the car at 7:30. At 1 o'clock, I was on the floor of the Senate for the first time as the putative majority leader. And within 45 minutes, I hadn't even given my first speech as putative majority leader to be, when a police officer in a big bulletproof vest, submachine gun across his waist, grabs me very firmly by the shoulder, by the collar. I'll never forget that. And he says, "Senator, you're in danger. Come with me." And you may have seen this because they got a film of it. We walked out the Senate chamber door, turned to the right. I went through a door, walking briskly. And 5 seconds later, I'm running the other way with the police officers. We were within 15 feet of these insurrectionists, these vile, bigoted, nasty, self-centered insurrectionists. Had one of them had a gun? Who knows? So it was the best of times, worst of times. And our job is to make sure that the kind of anger in the land, which many people have, even if they're not insurrectionists, thank God very few are, is evaporated because we're giving people a positive forward direction. The old American optimism, the old American dream. So that's my goal, and that was best of times, worst of times. So 2020 was a terrible year, the worst healthcare crisis in 100 years, the worst economic crisis, as your chamber knows, in 75 years, and all of the racial divisions in America shown bared open and sore. But the year ended in three good ways. One, in my judgment at least, Trump is no longer president. In the second, we got the vaccine. And the vaccine is amazing development of medical science. And in the bills that we're voting on today and we voted on in December, we do a lot of things. One, we provide every American can get the vaccine for free. No co-payments, no insurance, no, you have a deductible. Second, the new bill says the federal government is going to set this up. The federal government will set up centers to get the vaccine all over Queens, all over New York, all over the country. And it will no longer be run by the state or the city where they didn't even know how many vaccines were available. And so many people made appointments, waited online and didn't get them. So many appointments were canceled. There will be an adequate supply of the vaccines. Federal personnel will run each center between the National Guard, the FEMA administrators, the FEMA people, and they'll hire healthcare workers from temporary new healthcare workers from every community, people who work there. And you won't have to go through all the rigmarole. You just show up, get the vaccine, and they estimate that there will be so many vaccines that by mid-May, there'll be enough vaccines for everyone in the country and in New York. And if things work out by late summer, the most pessimistic, or one of the most pessimistic, barring something unforeseen, by midsummer, the median, and even by early summer, the more optimistic, we'll be back to normal, thank God. So that's the second good thing. And the third good thing is we were able to pass a COVID relief bill in December and a new one. We're passing a new one now in January, and that has lots of good stuff. First, I can assure you, as minority leader and now as majority leader, I make sure New York is taken care of. New York does very well in these bills. We got over $100 billion in dedicated funding to New York, and I make sure the formulas help New York. We got over $55 billion for New York small businesses and nonprofits through the last few years. First in the CARES Act, with the Paycheck Protection Program and the SBA debt relief payments, and now in other things. And so this bill has lots of good things. The initial rollout for small business was difficult, but we've made it much better. It's smoother, it's a lot easier, and we renewed the PPP in December, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Excuse me, I'm sorry to do this.
No worries.
Bob, I'll call you back if it can wait. Okay. These are my colleagues. Every one of my colleagues has my phone number. That was Senator Menendez of New Jersey.
He's doing the people's work. It's all good.
That's why I'm going to have to be a little quick here because of the day.
That's all right. We want to ask you a couple questions if we can.
So we got a new PPP in the new bill, and I'll get to that in a minute. But here's what's been in the bills that we've passed. Lots of things. $600 direct payments to low and middle income individuals will now get another $1,400. So let's say you're a family of four, you should get a $5,600 check if you're middle class or below. We extended the unemployment benefits and got $300 for that. We got money for the MTA. I got already $8 billion. There's another $6 billion coming, so they don't have to cut back on anything. And any of you funeral directors, we've gotten money to help pay for people's funerals. One of the saddest things was to see parents and grandparents dying of COVID, and their children and grandchildren are saying goodbye on Zoom or through a glass window at a hospital, a glass partition at a hospital. And manding insult to injury, if they're lost their job, they may not have enough money for a decent funeral or burial. That's in the bill. People don't know if it spread the word. We got a $2 billion for rent relief. That will apply to individuals, so they're not kicked out of their homes. And landlords, small landlords can apply for the relief if their tenants can't pay for it, because, you know, if you're a small landlord and you're not getting the rent, you're in trouble. But we got 88 billion in the first bill, 160 in the second, to open all our schools quickly and safely. And so that's going to be really a boon to people, because watching the kids is very, very, very difficult. And most important, we got money for our small businesses, and I'm going to talk about that. $284 billion for the PPP loan, first loans, and now a new second loan option. If you got the first loan, you can still get a second. If you were turned down for the first loan or didn't apply, you can apply for two loans. So there's a lot of money there. The new loans are much easier. The forgivability provisions are a lot better. They're much broader. We got the rent, the non-employment parts to go up to 40% for rent. And in the new bill, we're going to have 25 billion for restaurants. I'll bet many of the restaurants in the chamber are suffering, and they needed special relief. And there's 6 months of grants to our restaurants to keep them going. And then by September, hopefully it will be gone. I also got money for our arts institutions. We got something called Save Our Stages, which not only kept Broadway open, but Queens has lots of little venues, independent live venues where people come and listen to music, and local movie theaters and things like that where people couldn't gather. And this money is available to them. So there's a lot there. There's more money for idle, and something called CDFIs and MDIs. I don't know, Tom, if you're familiar with these, but we've given them enough money. So if you are a small business person, and by the way, we included nonprofits in this as well. So if you're a small business person, if you're a nonprofit, excuse me, oops, can it wait a sec? Or not? If it not, I'm gonna, Tom, I have to take this for 1 minute. I'm sorry.
You go, sir. No worries. Just mute it. Ladies and gentlemen, of those of you who can hear me, it's kind of neat to see him in action in our nation's capital, doing the people's work.
Hi. Okay, Tom, I'm sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, we're trying to put this bill together, so that was a call that I had to take. But in any case, these CDFIs and MDIs are set up with people to help very small businesses, minority, non-minority, to get the lending. If you're a very small business, you may not have a banker, even if you have a bank account. You may not have an accountant who knows this stuff. Their job, we'll give Tom a list of them that are applicable in Queens, and all you have to do is call them, and they'll have someone help you get these loans, because a lot of us smaller people didn't get them. There's also something that's now law called the Employee Retention Tax Credit, and it's expanded. What it does is it says you'll get a refundable payroll tax credit up to 70% of a worker's salary, up to $10,000 per quarter, to pay someone's salary if that was someone because your business is suffering and you normally have to lay them off. So that's up to $40,000, you get 70% of it. And it's been improved. All employers with less than 500 people can get it. So most of your businesses can, and a lot of people haven't applied for that, and they should. The PPP loans go up to $10 million in size, and they now are extended to 8 to 24 weeks. They can help pay for your utilities, your rent, your mortgage, in additional to payroll costs. And last time there was a big problem that PPE wasn't included. Now it is. So you can pay for your PPE. It applies to nonprofits, all nonprofits who are part of the chamber. I made sure that happened. And by the way, it applies to churches. A lot of our smaller churches are going under, no collection plate, and they're vital to the community at any time, particularly now. If you're a member of a church, and it applies, I work with the Cardinal, it applies to the Catholic parishes as well. It's not aggregated. So if the parish itself doesn't have 500 employees, they're okay, even though the church does. Very important. We got $2 billion to add to the 7A program, the Community Advantage program, which some of you have used, and 20 billion more for EIDL. There's going to be a lot more EIDL. So there's lots of help for small businesses, more than before. And I would urge everybody to explore it and look it up. I'm going to stop. Oh, in the new bill, we also get money for state and local government, $350 billion. New York State will get all the money it needs if this bill passes to cover its budget deficits, as well as New York City getting $5 billion to cover its deficit. So if you depend on the city, that's very important. And I mentioned the Restaurants Act. I mentioned vaccines. Let me take, I have to get off at 5:30. So let me take a couple of quick questions, Tom, if that's okay.
Terrific.
And I hope I didn't go too fast. I apologize. I'll try to come back another time.
Senator, you're doing the people's work. I don't want to stop you from doing that. So a couple quick ones. As the home to the two largest airports, in fact, our largest two employee bases is healthcare and transportation. What are your thoughts about restarting the JFK redevelopment, the LaGuardia Air Train? I know you did some work with the MTA, which is great, but you know, our friends at the Port Authority that employ so many people, their revenues vaporize. What are your thoughts about trying to reinvigorate the port?
We put in this bill enough money so that the state, which always funds the Port Authority, New York and New Jersey, will have ample funds to put into the Port Authority. In other words, the state deficit is about 5 billion this year and 10 billion next year, and they will get over 23 billion in direct money and then a lot of indirect money. So there will be ample money, and there's a clause in there that allows them to use that money to go to the Port Authority.
That's fantastic. The other thing people talk about all the time is beyond those specific areas, infrastructure in general, right?
Okay, good.
We've learned a lot about working from home and so on, but whether it's 5G or increased internet connectivity and so on, what are your thoughts about some of the funding for that to keep our businesses going?
Yes, this bill is not really an infrastructure bill, although we do provide about $17 billion for broadband, for internet, to get people connected and businesses connected that are not. But the next bill we're doing, which is President Biden calls Build Back Better, will be a massive, massive infrastructure bill, the biggest we've seen since the 50s. And it will apply to traditional infrastructure, roads and bridges. I'll make sure that subways and mass transit get a good chunk of that money. But it also applies to green stuff. It applies to some housing. It applies to some schools. So it's going to be huge. And anybody in the infrastructure business or supplying, and all the stuff that's used in this bill has to be American made. So we're not going to have foreign competition. So lots of our little manufacturing places in Queens and elsewhere will really get a shot in the arm. This should be anywhere from $2 trillion to $4 trillion, 10 million new jobs. We're making sure that some people who don't have good paying jobs are trained for them, because it's a great ladder up. You don't need a PhD in astrophysics. And so this is all to the good. And it won't be in this bill, but it's in the next one. The Build Back Better agenda will be the most robust infrastructure bill we've ever had.
Well, one of the things that we did,
we have to pass it, of course. That hasn't passed yet. These bills I'm talking about.
We'll be in your corner for that, that's for sure. One of the things we announced last week in Queens was the formation of a Queens Tech Council, building on the fact that all the reasons that Amazon chose Queens way back when all still exist. Our transportation, our diversity, our excellent colleges and universities. We've got Google, Facebook, Amazon, as well as a host of other business incubators gathering around. What are your thoughts on getting tech reinvigorated in a place like Queens County?
We proposed $100 billion for what's called the Endless Frontiers Act. This is money to go to tech, high-end tech of different types. And this will be a huge shot in the arm. You know, China invests in tech all the time. We have better people, we're more entrepreneurial, but if they outspend us 4 or 5 to 1, they could get ahead of us in key areas like internet, like 5G, like AI, like computing and things like that, like chips. So we propose a big investment in there. And I would make sure that once this passed, that areas like Queens with a diverse workforce, not, it doesn't all have to go to Silicon Valley or downtown Manhattan, share in this growth. The other thing we have to do, frankly, is change our immigration laws. One of the reasons we're good in tech is people from all around the world want to come here. In the last 4 years, they've knocked people out. We propose I'm for a comprehensive immigration bill. And in that immigration bill, we say any foreigner who studies STEM, science, technology, engineering, or math, and gets a degree in them, gets a green card stapled to their diploma. These people come here, they stay here, they start tech businesses, and guess which city benefits more than any other country, any other city than this is New York. So that's a very good thing that will also help us with tech.
One of the areas that's been an ongoing challenge is feeding those who cannot take care of themselves. What are your thoughts about some of the investments you're putting together in the farm to table greening of our environment, as well as in our cities with food in the food deserts of Queens County?
Well, one thing we're doing, of course, is providing SNAP and others so families don't starve who have lost their jobs, and we've gotten a big increase there. But there's also a large agriculture component of this bill, particularly just what you're talking about, farm to table, having farmers being able to sell on their own in green markets and to supermarkets and other kinds of things. And that really helps us. Now, as for the food desert issue, the Agriculture Committee led by Senator Stabenow is taking that up and trying to figure out the best way to deal with that issue.
In Queens County, we have 6,000 restaurants, Senator. We've estimated that we've lost 1,000 that probably will never reopen again. We want to make sure that the folks that work there that lost their jobs, they can't really be retrained because they really weren't trained in the first place. You don't need a GED or English as a second language to do some of the tasks in the kitchen, but it was the first rung on the ladder to get to the next step. We're talking about reskilling. Is part of your bills involving some workforce redevelopment?
Yes,
and
the
some
Build
retraining?
Back Better says that people who have lost their jobs in COVID or elsewhere can get training to work in any of these areas that I've talked about. And we expect about 40% of the new jobs that are created, 10 million jobs, will go to just the people you're talking about.
That's fantastic, because you know what, the end is almost near with the vaccinations as you open the program up, but it will still take a while, and some of those folks are going to be in
There are going to be millions of people in America who won't get their old jobs back and have to get new jobs, and we're very cognizant of that. I can take one more, Tom.
Yeah, what I wanted to just say, and kind of in closing, and also let you have the last word. Never before in the history of our city have so many organizations and people and electeds as well come together as one. The 5 chambers, you'd be proud to know the 5 chambers of the city of New York have banded together to help each other out and our citizens. It's really, really important that people understand that small businesses are in fact the lifeblood of our community, and anybody that says that needs to back it up, and I know you do. Any final words on the state of small
Yeah, and by the
business?
way, we included 501c6s in the new bill, so you can get PPP.
We
So
got it, sir. Thanks to you, we got it.
Yes,
As well as
yes.
thousands of others.
Yes, so did many others. I would just say small business is our backbone. It's in my blood because of this, my dad being a small businessman, this little exterminating business he had. And any way I can go to bat for small businesses, I will. And Tom, any of your businesses that are having any problems with the federal government, let us know. We'll go to bat for you.
I know you're famous for your Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening press conferences around New York City when you can. I welcome you. The welcome mat is open in Queens County. I would love to have you come visit. It's truly been an honor. Senator Chuck Schumer, thanks for all you do, and God bless.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it very much. Take care.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, any questions you may have for the senator, please continue to send in the chat. The staff of the senator has promised, and I promise as well, to answer those questions, especially anything specific. Happy to get back to each and every one of you. We have gotten pretty sophisticated here with keeping all the information from the chat. We can download the questions, and I promise you a response in one way, shape, or form. We certainly have a lot of work in front of us, Queens and the rest of America. I thank you for spending these last 30 minutes with us and Senator Schumer on a Friday afternoon. Keep working hard, don't give up, and never surrender. Thanks very much. Until next time, be well.